Uh, no, there's broad agreement, at least among the Western security partners, that using Huawei equipment poses a risk to security. The disagreement is over how you deal with that risk, how you mitigate it, and that's where you have different options proposed by countries like Germany or Britain. But nobody trusts Huawei, unfortunately, because of their links to the Chinese government.
So, James, I'm curious, regarding Huawei, who are their competitors that can supply the equipment that the world needs to upscale to 5G? And can they do it on a scale that Huawei can do it, as cheaply and as much, at least the volume of the equipment?
Sure. There's 4 companies right now that make 5G equipment or preparing to offer 5G equipment. Ericsson, which is probably the leader, Huawei, Nokia, and ZTE. And Samsung is a new entry to the market. They still only have a tiny market share, but they intend to be able to offer the full range, like Huawei, of 5G equipment. And right now, Huawei is not indispensable. They can be cheaper, and some studies suggest as much as 20% cheaper because of the subsidies they get from the Chinese government. So it's good technology at a subsidized price, but there are European and Korean competitors.
You say they're not indispensable, but we did get that comment coming from GSMA, the industry group over in Europe, saying that if the European countries are not able to use Huawei, that could delay deployment of 5G by years. I mean, Samsung, as you point out, doesn't even have 10% of the market share. How do you think they scale up in time?
It's not really a Samsung issue. I mean, Samsung.
But whether it's
wants to move
Samsung
into
or
this.
Ericsson or these other companies, can they realistically fill the void that's left by Huawei if they're not able to supply the equipment?
Oh, of course they can, and particularly Ericsson. So that sounds like a little bit of smoke there. Huawei is significantly cheaper because of the subsidies. That might be what's driving this, but you don't have to buy Huawei if you want to buy 5G.
Hey, James, I feel like the U.S. here is kind of between a rock and a hard place. You have the U.S. delegation in Barcelona kind of hammering Huawei. You have trade talks in D.C. where we're trying to get on China's good side. And then you have the fact that Huawei technology is advanced and is cheap. How do you really convince other partners in other countries to say no to them?
It's not been that hard with the people who worry about Chinese espionage. And there's probably about a dozen countries in the world, including some of our key allies, that say we're willing to pay a premium. We'll pay additional for 5G equipment that we can trust, or they'll limit the ability to use Huawei. So you're seeing a couple different strategies emerge between the US, Australia, Japan, Europe, but every one of them has some way to manage the risk of Huawei. And I think Huawei's had significant damage to its brand because of its ties to the Chinese government.
Hi, James. I think there's significant damage to the brand, but from what I understand, in places like Germany and the UK, it is sort of the primary go-to option if they want 5G. So my question would be, do you think that the US would accept some of the talks around what if the UK and Germany apply the technology to non-critical infrastructure, for example? Do you think that loosens up the opinion of the US?
I don't know. I think the US American officials have told me they are in alignment with the UK. So the gap there may not be as wide as it is portrayed in the press. The Germans are a little different. They're worried about China market access, and I think that's the primary concern. But the UK has put forward a solution that involves technical standards and a different architecture and banning Huawei in some areas that they consider sensitive. So there's a deal beginning to emerge, at least among the like-minded countries. I would not necessarily put Germany in that category right now.
Okay, James, we're going to have to leave it there. Appreciate your time today. James Lewis with the Center for Strategic and International Studies Technology Policy Program.
Coming up.
Thank you.